The National Intelligence Service comes to pick us up. They come with a bus, and there are so many routes to Incheon Bridge that go to the airport. As we were going there, wow, honestly, I hardly ever rode in a car in North Korea.
I've barely ridden in a car before, and
After arriving, I rode the bus, and while driving, I was amazed at how well built the roads are.
So when we got to the big bridge at that moment,
it was early in the morning, around 7 o'clock.
but yes, hello viewers, this is Lee-Cherun. Today we have Young-myung, who defected from North Korea in 2019 with us. He's a young man from North Korea. He says, hello, I defected from North Korea in 2019, so it's been about 6 years now. I'm currently living here while attending university. In 2019. By the way, where is your hometown and what is your name? Yes, my name is Young-myung, and my hometown is Bocheon County in Yangon Province, North Korea. It's a bit up north, right below Mount Baekdu. Ah, do you know Bocheon County?
Yes, here.
Usually I see a lot of people on television who are from Haesan. My hometown is about a 5-hour walk from there.
Walking from Hisan?
A 5-hour walk will get you to Bocheon County. You defected from North Korea in 2019. May I ask how old you are now? I'm 22 years old. If I calculate back from 2019, it seems you defected when you were quite young. How old were you when you defected? I was 17 years old when I left North Korea, and I arrived in South Korea when I was 18. At 17, is that after graduating middle school? Yes, that's right. That's the age when you graduate middle school there, but I didn't go to school in North Korea. Oh, you didn't go to school? Including the reasons why I didn't go to school and all that. 17 is a young age. It really is a young age. At that time, at the young age of 17, I came to the Free Republic of Korea. Today, I'll talk about that story in detail, step by step. So while you were living in North Korea until you were 17, did you know about South Korea? Yes, I did know about South Korea, but I didn't know exactly that it was called South Korea or the Republic of Korea. We just called it Namjoseon, South Joseon. That's how we referred to it. What I knew the most was probably because there were so many people who had come from North Korea before me. Those people would send money to the families they left behind in their hometowns. So in my neighborhood too, there were people whose families had come to South Korea first, and I knew they were receiving money.
That's how I found out.
That's it. So now
I get paid.
through those activities, you learned about South Korea because of that family. When you were in North Korea, what did you think about our South Korea? Back in North Korea, you probably knew it as South Joseon rather than the official name, Republic of Korea.
You knew it as South Joseon when you were in South Joseon?
What did you know about it? Well, I always thought that it was much wealthier than North Korea and even better off than China. As mentioned earlier, my family members who first came to South Korea used to send money, so I didn't realize it back then, but I do now. I thought it was really easy to make money there and that people lived well because they sent money so easily.
We didn't know the situation. We don't really know.
So I thought they were living very well. So, as you said, you got to know about South Korea because your family was in Korea and you were sending money to North Korea. Then how did you decide to defect at such a young age? At 17, what made you decide to escape from North Korea? Actually, since I lived in the countryside, I only worked on the farm until I was 17. I have an older brother, and there are 3 siblings in our family. There's quite an age gap between my brother and me, so my brother left home first, settled down somewhere, and then decided to come to South Korea. So at that time, given my young age, it was tough for my brother to go alone too. It was a difficult situation. But with my family, then they secretly talked to me and said, well, if we get caught while escaping, we could really die. Even so, they said they wanted to take me with them and asked if I was willing to go, telling me it was my choice. So at that time, honestly, I had only been farming until I was 17, and it was really tough. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said you only farmed until you were 17. Normally, wouldn't you have graduated middle school in North Korea by 17?
Right, so then
why weren't you able to study before that? I attended school up until the 4th grade in elementary school, and in North Korea, when you reach 5th grade, you move up to middle school. But at that time, our neighborhood only had an elementary school.
there was one, and
Now to get to middle school, I had to walk an hour and a half from my house.
that's how long it takes. Over the mountain.
I have to cross one. So at first I went there for a few days, but carrying a lunchbox and going to school like that when I was young,
It's a hassle, you know.
there was that too. And also my father passed away when I was young, when I was 13. So since we had to make a living through farming, I started working on the farm with my mother and I couldn't go to school anymore. So that's the conclusion. After finishing the 4th grade at the elementary school, I was supposed to go to middle school, but the middle school was an hour and a half away.
I had to walk to school.
And you also suffered from hardships at that school, right?
So your father...
After your father passed away early, your family struggled to make ends meet, so you couldn't attend school while working. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's correct.
So does that mean you worked on the farm at home? That's right. Our main job is farming, and we grow potatoes.
And corn.
And bean farming, yes, there are a few more, but that's usually about it.
So that's how it is.
Farming,
I did farming.
as we commonly know, North Korea is a socialist communist system, so it's a cooperative.
And the land too.
The state manages it, right? Did you have your own land? Yes, that's right. We had our own land, but it was privately owned.
We had it, but...
North Korea has initiated a program called land inspection.
They do it. While doing it?
For example, if something is near the labor union's land, they reclaim it.
So the labor union
Makes it into their land?
and also...
How should I put this? Things that were a bit distant or far away, you could own those even if you did own them.
Just like in our country.
Although we call it ownership, people simply farmed and lived off the land. I'm worried our viewers might misunderstand, so there could be some room for misunderstanding.
There could be, like with real estate. It's not like I'm holding on to it that way.
So you can't say it's your land. Ultimately, all the land belongs to Kim Jong-un, but you just harvest crops from a piece of land that's separated from the rest. Basically, useless land. You can only take the harvest, but you can't own, buy, or sell the land itself. So you defected when you were 17. It must have been dangerous to defect at such a young age. How was it? Ah, that's right. Since you're risking your life, it's definitely dangerous. I was following my older brother,
And I saw that my brother...
was in contact with the broker and had prepared everything to come to Korea. We prepared for a year and a half.
While preparing for that...
We prepared for that for a year and a half. So, when my older brother asked if I would follow him, honestly, I wasn't that scared. I was young, and I was just following my brother.
Well, while going...
What's the worst that could happen? Just dying. That's how hard life was in North Korea.
Since you keep mentioning your older brother, may I ask how old he is and if he came to South Korea with you?
Yes, he came to South Korea with me, and he was born in 1987. I have something I'm curious about because you came in 2019 and you were still quite young when you arrived. What do young people in North Korea these days think about South Korea? This can vary depending on the region, but there are some differences. But in the case of coastal areas, since they are exposed to a lot of videos and recordings, they seem to have a more positive perception of Korea. And in rural areas, since information is lacking,
It seems a bit...
they've been brainwashed and just accept the ideological education taught in North Korea as it is. There are quite a lot of people like that. North Koreans have changed ideologically, according to people from Yangon province.
But in Yangon province...
When you, who came from Yangon province, look at the average people there up until 2019. Were there more loyal people or more people who had changed ideologically? Of course, loyalty is mostly shown on the surface because if you say something wrong there, you know what happens. So, on the surface, everyone talks as if they have very high loyalty, but when they sit in the back and talk, as long as they don't curse Kim Jong-un, they all speak negatively. Ah, I see, like that. So, a lot of people have definitely changed their perception, right? Yes, it's changed a lot. Young people these days, in North Korea, young people these days, I've heard that there are young people who want to come to South Korea, but in reality, are there actually many young people who want to come to South Korea? But wouldn't there still be some? You can't exactly ask people in North Korea, do you want to go to South Korea? Judging by people's reactions, I believe more people want to go. Although I can't say for certain since it's not that type of situation. Because, well, there might be people living well there.
But there are also people who have a hard time.
Some people struggle to live, while others learn about Korea through dramas and similar media.
So those kinds of things...
Haven't those things changed a lot? You lived in North Korea until you were 17, so you must still have memories of it. It's impossible not to have any memories of North Korea because I don't think those memories can be erased. Because there were also memories of really hard times. That's why. So, what is the most memorable thing from your time living in North Korea? Actually, unlike other people, I've never really traveled more than about 100 kilometers from my hometown. Because there aren't many cars there. And transportation options are limited.
They don't work well either.
And there are roads.
Things like that don't work well either.
You know? And if you don't have money, you can hardly go anywhere. So, because of that, I never really got far from where I was born. And I just farmed until I was 17. So, what I remember most is that farming was the hardest thing. Because I was still young.
I wanted to go out and play.
From what I've heard of your story so far, it's heartbreaking that you want to do that. That's what I remember most. You decided to come to South Korea at 17, but honestly, life in North Korea before that is something we can't even put into words. You couldn't study and just worked on the farm. That's what you've been saying. That's the conclusion. I only completed 4th grade and couldn't attend middle school until age 17. I worked on the family farm until my older brother suggested we defect to South Korea.
What was your defection route?
As for the defection route, a few days before my brother left, about 3 days, he sent someone to me. My brother lived in Hisan, so he told me to come visit his house, and that's how I went down there. Living with my brother was different. Since there was an age gap between us, I lived in the countryside with my mother, and my brother became independent and got married.
That's right, my sister-in-law.
I met her and lived in Haisan, so I went down to my brother's house in Haisan and stayed there for about 2 days, just hanging out. And then the day before my brother left, we went outside and talked. He said he was going to Korea. So I spent the night at my brother's house, and the next morning I went down to Haesan Square and took a train from there. I took the train to a place called Samsu-Gapsan.
That's Kim Jong-suk County.
There's a place there. If you walk a bit further from there, you'll see the river. It's a bit wide in that area, but the current is a little
weak.
So, I left the mountain in the morning and arrived there around 11 o'clock.
At 11 o'clock at night when it was dark.
So from then until 9 in the evening until it got dark, I hid in the mountain.
I stayed hidden there, so...
After it got dark and I saw there was no one around, I crossed the river. Well, of course, you could come that way too. It's common for people to collude with the border guards or the border patrol.
That's what they say people do.
You didn't do that and just crossed on your own. Yes, that's right, I didn't collude with anyone. But Hyung, rather than calling it broken, since Haesan is a border area, there are actually a lot of people who cross over to China. There, someone who had gone to China a few times for business probably knew the way well.
And that person knew the way.
He guided us to the river crossing into China, and after crossing, led us to a place where we could get a car through a broker.
While living in North Korea, I could never travel more than 100 kilometers from home.
That's what I said, but...
This time, I crossed the border into another country. I went to China. How did I feel then? Honestly, I was really excited. From the moment I arrived in China, I was really excited.
So...
I didn't feel in danger, just like I was floating. I felt good. Yes, since I watched a lot of dramas when I was in Korea, I thought that if I went into a drama, of course I would live well. I didn't really know much, so I thought it would be easy to live like that. So I was really excited, and I stayed excited until I arrived in Thailand. Yeah, that's right, that's how it was. And while escaping, watching dramas, I imagined that if I went to Korea, it would be like that.
You know, I had those thoughts about Korea.
What were you thinking as you were coming? What did you think you should do when you got to Korea?
Well, first of all, what I wanted to do the most back then was, since I lived in the countryside, I wanted to wear sneakers like the ones here.
You know, those kinds of sneakers.
I've never worn those before. Then what do you... In North Korea, we just wore simple work shoes called jihajok.
There's something called jihajok.
Now, you tie the laces like this.
If you tie them tightly, even the dirt.
Soldiers usually wear them while working to avoid getting debris, and actually jihajong, which are like our soldiers,
they're military boots, soldiers.
Wear them, so it's actually good to wear them when working. Because they said dirt doesn't get in, and since they have ankle support and laces, they're kind of like high-top Converse shoes, but a bit
The quality is different, though.
Well, of course, it's hard to talk about the quality.
When you visit, consider wearing those sneakers.
Yes, I did, with the sneakers.
And clothes and stuff like that.
Fashion. Korea.
So you became interested in those things while watching dramas?
Because that's exactly what young people wear. When you were in North Korea, what kind of Korean dramas or movies did you watch? I didn't watch many movies, but I did watch a few dramas. One of them was a drama called I Can Hear Your Voice.
And also, War of Money.
There's also a drama called War of Money.
There is, and there's also a drama called My Girl with Lee Da-hai and Lee Dong-wook star in it.
I watched that drama a bit.
North Korea has poor electricity, but people can still watch dramas using batteries and other methods despite the unreliable power supply.
You know, with batteries.
And now solar power. North Korea actually has a lot of that.
Usually almost every household has at least one.
That's how common it is.
Now, you just plug it in to charge.
It's called Neo-tutel, but I'm not sure how to explain it here. It's kind of like something the size of a laptop.
But now...
It doesn't have the same functionality as a laptop.
It's just for things like USBs.
Or inserting and secure a digital card to watch videos, just about that much. People who came from North Korea often ask, how did you manage to watch so many dramas when the electricity situation is so poor there? But as Young-myung said, most households in North Korea have batteries and solar panels, so they charge them during the day and watch television at night. I hope you can understand it that way. And if North Korea provided a stable electricity supply, you wouldn't be able to watch Korean dramas, right? What do you think?
How did you feel when you first arrived in South Korea?
When I first arrived in South Korea, it was January. But since I came from Thailand, and Thailand is really hot, you know? I was just wearing shorts and a hoodie when I came, but it was really cold. It was cold, yeah.
Of course. And then...
So as soon as I came out of the airport, the National Intelligence Service came to pick me up, right? They came with a bus to pick me up. And there are so many Incheon bridges on the way to the airport. On the way there, wow, honestly, in North Korea, I hardly ever rode in a car.
I've barely ever ridden in a car, and...
After coming here, I rode the bus and everything. And as we were coming, I saw that the roads were really well made. So when I saw the big bridge, at that moment...
It was early in the morning, around 7 o'clock.
But the sunrise was just so amazing. The sun was rising up beautifully.
The way it was rising, you know?
It felt like a welcome to Korea, something like that. So your first impression was seeing the Incheon bridge and the sunrise, and you thought, are they welcoming me? In North Korea, our National Intelligence Service is widely known as the Agency for National Security Planning, and people say that if you come to the agency, you don't get questioned like this, but that there's also torture. Initially, I was very concerned when questioned by the National Intelligence Service. However, my older brother had arrived a month prior to me. We left together, but I stayed at a missionary center in Thailand for about 2.5 months, so my brother and I were separated in Thailand for about a month. When I arrived at the National Intelligence Service, my brother called me and said I should answer their questions honestly. At first I was really nervous, but when I went in, the investigator told me to have some snacks, and then he started handing out choco pies. And then the very first thing they did was, you know, the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2 that says the Republic of Korea is a free and democratic country. They had me memorize that. Then they asked me about North Korea, where I lived, things like that. But honestly, I didn't have much to say. Because when I said I lived somewhere in Incheon, they pulled up a satellite map and said, okay, wait a second. And they found it right away. And since there were already people who came before, they knew everything when I lied there.
That's right, that's right.
Now, everyone just ends up knowing everything. Yes. And when I came at that time, I was still a minor, so I don't think they questioned me that hard.
From what I can see,
As mentioned, I've never been more than 100 kilometers from my birthplace, so there was little for them to investigate. After completing the National Intelligence Service investigation, I visited Incheon and Anhwang. I didn't really know about that. But when you go there, what kind of training do they do? How do they do it? Is it for students who are about to become adults?
In that case, well...
Depending on their age, like if they're middle school students, they make them study for about 3 months as middle schoolers. Just about the regular curriculum, but since people from North Korea haven't been able to study much...
That's right, those kinds of things.
Most of them are like that, right? So they teach basic things and focus a lot on that kind of stuff. Oh, and after you left Hanawan in Incheon, the National Intelligence Service facility, you came out into society, right? You had some fantasies about South Korea from watching dramas and things like that. How was it?
How did the South Korea you imagined and dreamed of look to you?
Despite the availability of seats, everyone was standing. Unaware, I sat down comfortably. An elderly person then came and sat in front of me. People kept looking at me strangely. I was just sitting still using my phone, but no matter how I looked at it, I could really feel their stares. So at that time, I didn't know.